SoCal Strategies, the pollster that I sponsor on this channel, finds that Kamala Harris has a national lead against JD Vance according to the latest approval ratings, and the Electoral College is tight as ever. Hello everyone and welcome back to another video with On Point Politics. Make sure to hit the like button and to subscribe if you want more content just like this. Leave your thoughts down below with a comment, would be greatly appreciated. Looking at the latest polling that we got from the new SoCal Strategy survey from yesterday, we see that Donald Trump is plus 13% in favorability, which is very impressive. When you look at Donald Trump's job approval, he's up 13 points. His best age group actually being 18 to 29-year-olds. He has a 58% approval rating with 18 to 29-year-olds to 31% disapprove. You see female voters barely disapprove of Donald Trump, basically a statistical dead heat. You see that male voters are also significantly ahead in a favorability for Donald Trump. He's approved by Hispanic voters. He's also approved by 35% of blacks, which is a lot of voters. That's a lot. And you see about 21% unsures. 44% of black voters disapprove of him, meaning that there are literally less than 50% of black voters disapprove of the new president now, which is absolutely insane. And when you actually look at people with a college degree, Donald Trump is up 10 points with that category, which is really remarkable. He's up 9 points with white college voters. And he's even up with non-white college voters by more than he is with white college. That's insane. He's even up with non-white, no college voters as well. And you see here that people who didn't vote in the election approve of Donald Trump by a pretty significant amount. So there is a lot of people who are really backing him up. And we see here Kamala Harris, 75% of her vote is basically in that column. But you do have about 15% of people who voted for Kamala unsure of their opinion of Donald Trump, meaning they voted for Kamala and now they regret voting for Kamala, or they're making a new judgment on Donald Trump and their opinion of him. And people who voted for somebody else, you have a lot of unsure. Some people are for, Kamala, or at least disapprove of the president-elect, which is very, very fascinating here. So Donald Trump's job approval is very high. He's also favorable amongst even his own personal favorable rating as a person. He's up positive nationally, which is insane. Vance is also up 1, or he's up 2 nationally. Vance is up 1. Kamala Harris, on the other hand, is currently at 42%. And again, Kamala's approval is higher than Vance's because she has technically higher name recognition. But she got about 48% of the popular vote. And her favorable was in the high 40s. And now it's in the low 40s, which isn't great. And you got about 47% unfavorable. And when you look at the favorables of both candidates here, you see that Donald Trump's job approval percentage is right about the popular vote that he got. He ended up getting roughly about 49.9% of the popular vote this cycle. And Kamala Harris is all the way down at 42, meaning that there is about roughly, give or take, like 6% of voters that just straight up regret voting for her, which is pretty insane. That's a large sample of people. A pretty high sample at that. And we look through this, she's doing terribly with a lot of subgroups, but Vance obviously has lower name recognition and thus is technically going to be less favorable than Kamala Harris, but is also way less disliked than Kamala. That's also a big difference here, guys. He's also way less disliked than she is. Clearly, she's got 47% disapproval, which is even higher than what Donald Trump's personal and job approval disapprovals are, which is insane. But Vance also has a lower unfavorable compared to Kamala Harris as well. And when you kind of basically match this out, it's pretty interesting. But Donald Trump definitely made an impact on the electoral map because despite this race being very tight, Vance does have an electoral path to win. And right now, Kamala having more name recognition is definitely going to help her against somebody like Vance. Again, this is early polling, very early stuff. In 2028, if we were to get there, the polling would obviously look different because more people would know who Vance is. But looking at all of the margins of all the different states, we can start filling out some of the safe states. And we see Utah, Idaho, Montana, Wyoming, the Dakotas, all of Nebraska. If we go to the 1st Congressional District, still above, a 10-point win. Kansas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Tennessee, Kentucky, Missouri, Indiana, West Virginia, and South Carolina are all in the safe Republican column. We see the state of Iowa at just about roughly under 10 points, but we'll get to that in a second because this is it for all the likely, for all the safe states, actually. Alaska is exactly at 10 points, and Maine second is just above 10 in this scenario. But I actually think that's it. I think he just gets 126 electoral votes. Anything above 10 points. I think this is literally it. Kamala Harris gets California. She does roughly about 5 points better. Kamala won it by 20.1%. In 2024, it seems like here she's winning it by about 25.1% in this scenario, so she does about 5 points better. And what ends up happening here is you actually look at the approval ratings, and you'll notice when you look at demographics, JD Vance is severely in the lower area with his favorable with Hispanics. Kamala's is a lot higher, albeit at the same place that it was back in the election. So if Kamala were to have a rematch with Donald Trump, she'd actually just do worse with white voters in general. Her approval with Hispanics hasn't necessarily changed much. But again, Vance's name ID is so low that he basically, and he also just doesn't appeal to Hispanics as much as Donald Trump even did regardless. So that's also a major issue for Vance. So you're going to see a lot of reversion of some of the Hispanic coalition. However, Vance on average performs better with white voters, especially the white college voters. And so you're going to see that group shift back. So you know how the electoral college bias actually shifted towards Democrats. This cycle was basically about even. Whoever was going to win the popular vote was going to basically win the election. Well, now JD Vance actually has a significant electoral college benefit because Kamala's winning the popular vote here by 4, and this is basically going to be a toss-up map. Like, there's going to be a bunch of states that I leave in the toss-up column, which basically shows that the more Democrats gain with minority voters, the worse the electoral college bias gets for Republicans. Oregon is in the safe column, 17.6. That's a little bit over a 3-point improvement. Washington shifts to the left by 2 points, about 18.2% in 2024. It's 20.1 in this election. Colorado, about 14.3, so another 3.3 percentage point shift. Illinois coming in at about 16, so really similar to the 2020 margin that Joe Biden got. In the state of New York, Kamala only wins that by 15.5, so only shifts back to the right or to the left by just about 3 points. Maine's first is in the safe column. Vermont, Massachusetts, Maryland, D.C., Hawaii. Those are all going to be in the safe column. I mean, Hawaii only shifts left by like a point, by the way. And you see like New Jersey shifts left by 5. Rhode Island, Connecticut, they shift by about like 2 points each. Rhode Island, Delaware, the same thing. They don't really shift that much to the right because Vance gains with white college voters, specifically more Catholic voters. And so, yes, Kamala technically gains with non-college whites because, again, guys, Donald Trump had a very unique appeal with that base. And with JD Vance's name recognition being pretty low, that's definitely going to affect his performance with those voters, despite Vance being a pretty popular guy as of right now. His name ID is definitely going to affect him with non-college whites in general. But overall, with white college voters, Vance on average does a little bit better because those are a lot of the white Catholics that Vance appeals to, especially in the Northeast. So that's why you see those states don't really shift to the left as much as some of the Sunbelt states are going to. Like Florida is actually in the likely column at just 9 points, which is about a 4-point shift to the left. You see the state of Texas, only 6.7% for Vance. So Vance does significantly worse in the state of Texas against Kamala Harris. You see Trump won it by 13.7%. Vance right now is only winning it by 6.7%. Again, the Hispanic vote reverting to the Democrat column, which is, again, guys, very early polling. Things could change, but this is what it's showing right now. And again, guys, I report the honest data that we collect on the show, and this is what the approval ratings are showing me for the 2028 election. Iowa and Ohio, about almost 10 points in Ohio, actually, 9.5. So it doesn't really shift leftward that much. And then Iowa is 7.4. That one shifts to the left by a pretty significant amount. That's actually a huge shift. That's like 6 points to the left. So a really big shift in Iowa to the left for Kamala Harris. We see some of the likely blue states. New Mexico falls about 8.1% for Harris. So only about a 2-point shift to the right. Doesn't really shift rightward by that much. By the way, just FYI, it doesn't really shift to the right or to the left by that much. And we also see, Minnesota here at about 8.1% for Harris. So Harris is significantly better here. She improves by about 4 points in the state of Minnesota. Virginia, only 7.5 for Harris. And it's because Vance in this election actually gains with black voters by a pretty significant amount. According to some of the approval rating data, he's getting about roughly 20+% of the black vote against Kamala. So yes, these areas down here are going to shift left, but not as left as they usually would, just because of how much Trump actually gains with the black vote. Hence why Maryland actually shifts like 3 points Republican in this scenario. And then New Hampshire and Maine are obviously in the likely column. You see New Hampshire at 9.3% for Harris, so huge gain there, especially with the trends. And then Maine actually votes to the right of New Hampshire by just 8 points for Harris. So Harris gains like about 1.5 points in Maine, and New Hampshire swings left. And again, anti-incumbent state, it's a really big problem. And then we see a Nebraska second, 7.7 for Kamala. So you see a pretty similar map to 2020. This is looking a lot more like 2020 than it is 2024. And since Kamala performs better with minority voters, despite her winning the popular vote by 4, a very similar margin to Joe Biden's 2020 victory, you actually see a pretty close electoral college. And what's interesting, guys, is I hate to break it to you guys. I know a lot of people on the channel here are Trump supporters, but right now the model does show Kamala winning the election. It's very, very close, guys. It is super close. It could basically go either way. Wisconsin shows up as like a 2-point win for Harris. And again, guys, this Rust Belt state did vote to the left of the other two this cycle. And again, approval ratings in the model definitely make a difference. Campaign stops, fundraising makes a big difference, of course. So again, those can't really be implemented yet because there is no new, fundraising. There is no new campaign events. We're still 4 years out from 28. So all of that can be added to the model later. But right now it's showing Wisconsin as a lean Democrat state, with Nevada also being in the lean Democrat column because of the Hispanic vote shifting back by so many points. And we actually see here, if we look at North Carolina, a 0.2 percentage point win for Vance. So very close, but he does end up picking it off. And the state of Arizona actually does stay with Vance. It shifts to the left by about almost 5 points, a little over 5. And again, Hispanics really moving the state back into the Democrat column. But Vance narrowly holds on to the state. And then you see here, in the states of Michigan and Pennsylvania, you see that Michigan is a 0.1 percentage point win for Harris. Pennsylvania is 0.9. And in the state of Georgia, just 0.7 for Kamala Harris. So she does actually win the Electoral College. Very narrow in the model, but you do actually see her end up pulling it off. Maybe Arizona would also go because, again, guys, a lot of the times when somebody wins the election, all the states just kind of break. And again, we're still very far out. The approval ratings obviously make a big difference in this. If Trump was just slightly more popular than Harris in Michigan in the model right now, that would actually flip and the election would be significantly closer. If Pennsylvania were to flip, it'd be a big game changer. But Vance would have to win, basically 2 out of the 3 tilt Democrat states. But guys, as of right now, this is effectively the toss-up map. So like if I basically just erase all of the states here, these are basically all of the swing states as of right now. All the states that are decided by less than a point are the states of Michigan, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Georgia, and Arizona. So because Harris gains with minority voters, the Electoral College bias is now in favor of JD Vance. So JD Vance in this scenario could lose the popular vote by a couple points and still possibly eke out a narrow win. But you do see that Harris is narrowly winning the Electoral College by like the absolute skin of her teeth. Even in this scenario, when her name recognition in the polling is significantly higher, she's still barely winning. And she's way less popular than she even was against Donald Trump. I could actually do another video testing out how the election would look with a Donald Trump versus a Kamala, because that would be a disaster for Kamala Harris. It would be horrible for Kamala as of right now. But if you guys did enjoy this video, make sure to hit the like button and to subscribe if you want more content just like this. And I will see you guys in the next video.